This film takes a completely different than you would expect approach to the real life murder and slaying of Emmett Till. Should you watch it? I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and this is my review of Till. I'm a blind film critic, and yeah, I also know I'm a white film critic. And I acknowledge that is my specific viewpoint coming into this film. I watched this on iTunes. I rented it off of iTunes where it had audio description. And I do have a lot of thoughts. I'm approaching this in a very careful manner. I don't want to turn Till into like me giggling about the film, so I'm trying to just keep it, because it's a very somber film, and there's a lot of it that worked really amazingly well. We had a director who's, I would love to try to pronounce her name. I'm so sorry. I have not heard it pronounced enough. She's not gotten enough awards consideration and attention. Chenanoy Chukwu. It's the best I can do based off of what IMDb and my screen reader is giving me. I literally sat there and went character by character and dropped down and just like and spelled out phonetically, and I was like, that's all I got. She hasn't been nominated for enough things this award season, so which is kind of a shame, because I would put the directing in Till at least on par with Gina Prince Bythewood's directing in The Woman King. I know Blythewood had a lot of action sequences to deal with, but they were both directing sort of points in history. And they were both doing so from an intentional perspective, I would say, with intent and purpose. And I think both of them achieved their intended purposes. Neither one of them are my favorite films of the year. Although I would argue that Till is one of those films that if somebody says it's their favorite film, you should ask them why. Because it's not really it's one of those weird titles to say this is my favorite film. If you just love to be moved by things, if you love to cry, if this moves you, that makes it a good film. I don't know that this makes it a film that a lot of people are going to rewatch over and over. I don't see this being a film that becomes like an annual viewing, and in that manner. But Danielle Detweiler gives one hell of a performance here, and I'm already mad the Globes didn't give her a nomination. Like, I'm already mad about that. I'm like, she's fantastic in this film. There's one time where I just kind of remember somebody just keeps asking her something and asking her to do something, and she just kind of stops and she just kind of says really pointedly, like my son is dead. And the way that Danielle said it was just so effective in that moment. It just like stopped time. It really is a brilliant performance. I don't know that the film actually matches her level. I don't know if it's because I saw Women of the Movement and saw Adrienne Warren. So I was so familiar with the beat by beat. Women of the Movement also went for it in terms of showing you the violence. Women of the Movement, which was the miniseries that aired on ABC that focused on Emmett Till, focused on the actual violence of the event itself, as much as it could for a show that aired on TV. I mean, it came with a warning, with a content warning, but Till actually doesn't do that. Till very much pulls back. You hear it off in the distance, and the way that you find out later on is pretty much the same point Mamie finds out when you see the body. And that does linger for a while for those of you sighted people. Of course, that's a very famous image, so maybe you've already historically seen what the actual Emmett looked like. But that's where the director didn't pull any punches. It's a fairly long sequence with Mamie grieving and her son's body being in the morgue. It's definitely one of the sequences in the film that really puts Danielle's performance just over the top. The film seems really crafted by people who seem to love Danielle Detweiler and really wanted her to soar, or really wanted people to love Mamie Till, like people who really respected Mamie Till and were trying to push the rest of it away and just focus on that. It doesn't focus very much. The court case feels kind of muted if you're trying to get into the investigation of Emmett Till, versus, like I said, I hate comparing it to a TV miniseries, but when Women of the Movement went after the court scene, it spends a while there. This one, it does bring Mamie down. She does testify, but you don't like live in the courthouse setting. It's more about her experience, about her going to the place where they found her son, about her confronting her cousin in a great sequence. The actor who plays her cousin that should have protected him, the older gentleman, is incredible. You know, when he's trying to he can't bring himself like I am right now. He knows that there's no explanation, but he's trying to find one. He knows that there's no really great explanation for why he had a gun in that house and why he let those men. And his explanation is basically, I had to sacrifice him because if I didn't, all of the white people in the area would have come after not just me and my entire family, but like all the black people down here. Like, you just can't shoot white people. You know, she basically wanted him to shoot them to save her kid, and he's trying to explain to her why that was unrealistic. But at the same time, I think he's clearly racked with guilt, and that was just such a difficult role to play. So it's just a small role because he's only in a couple scenes, but it's very good acting. This whole film actually has really good acting all throughout. Whoopi Goldberg is used sparsely in this, but it's very strong when she's on screen. She has like no dialogue too. She has like I don't know, just a couple sentences. It's such a interesting role because I wonder if she advocated for it herself, hearing about the movie, or if they actually reached out for her, because there aren't a lot of cameos. There aren't a lot of well-known actors in cameos. The other probably most well-known actors are like Frankie Faison and Sean Patrick Thomas being in this film, but Whoopi is in the smallest of those roles, and it's a nice role. She plays the mother to Mamie Till, but she doesn't have a ton to do, and the focus is not on her. So, where do I sit with this film? I thought the director's intention here was, like many black filmmakers and talents in Hollywood, are just kind of over turning black suffering into entertainment, and telling stories about being slaves, and those kind of things. So they're trying to find new ways of telling these stories from new perspectives. And I think Till achieves that in so much that it doesn't actually show you, it doesn't focus on the moment. It doesn't focus on the death. It doesn't focus on the killing. It focuses on Mamie. It focuses on her reaction. It focuses on what she chooses to do moving forward, every distinctive choice that she makes and how it affects the world moving forward, how she sort of turns into an advocate. Sometimes we end up advocating for things out of necessity, not because we necessarily choose to do them. I mean, there are a lot of people running around right now who are advocating for climate change, but they haven't like necessarily directly been negatively impacted in such the same way as, you know, a grieving mother losing her son and then advocating for change and fighting for this anti-lynching bill, which I'll get to in a second. But and it reminds me sort of like there's a sort of the similar thing with the Amber Alert. There's a documentary on Peacock right now that goes through how those parents fought to make sure that what happened to them wouldn't happen to anybody else. And that's sort of what happens with Mamie, is that she sort of realizes not only is she trying to get justice for her son, but she's also trying to make sure that the accountability is there and it never happens again to anybody else. She has the attention of the nation at that moment in time. So it's a very interesting film. It's not my favorite film of the year, and I don't know if it's because I saw Women of the Movement. It just felt very deja vu and very much like I'd walked in these footsteps before. And I think it might be an unfair comparison, and I'd struggled with whether or not to even grade the film, because I'm comparing it to a TV miniseries that happened to come out, you know, within the same relative span of time. And I think about other times when that's happened, when we've seen two films, and generally the second one that comes along that is about the person, it's so unfair. You know, I mean, we saw Darkest Hour, and then after that we had Churchill with Brian Cox, and then we had, back in the day, we had Capote with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then after that we had the one with Sandra Bullock that was in it. I've already forgotten the name of it. But sometimes when you're the second one to come along and somebody just told your story, it's a little bit harder to tell it again and to make it go, ooh, yeah. So for people who saw Women of the Movement, I don't know that necessarily, but then again, I don't know how many people saw Women of the Movement. I just consume a lot of entertainment. So for me, the film itself didn't do much. It's intentionally muted, which I respect, but it also has these incredibly powerful moments. If I had to pick, I think Till probably is the better film. I just wasn't as the better production overall. I think Danielle Detweiler outperforms Adrienne Warren in a very narrow battle. I mean, Adrienne gave a fantastic performance as well, but I think this is probably the better film, the better production, but still there's something about it where I can only get just so into it and excited about something that I feel like I'm like, okay, I just saw that. It's so weird inside my head, and I know that's just me. It has nothing to do with this being anything. I know you're sitting there going, well, the white critic didn't like it. It had nothing to do with that. It really just has everything to do with the fact that I just saw something, and then somebody was telling me the exact same story again. And just sort of with a slightly different twist, like we're going to try to do a nicer version of it. I think Till probably, you know, if you're looking at me and you're going, he's a white film critic, he may be blind and hard to tell who's on screen at any given time, but he is white. I would I'd push back on that, and I would say I think this is a white film. I know that's shocking. That's a shocking thing to say. But what is the point of calling this a black film? What is, like, do black people need to know about this? I can't imagine that black people need to be educated on black suffering. I can't imagine that black people need to be educated on racism. I feel like black people already know the Emmett Till story. I feel like the scene, like, at the top where Mamie tells Bo exactly how he's supposed to act when he goes down south to Mississippi, is an unfortunate conversation that I think black parents are still having with their kids today. So what is it that they have to learn or gain from the film other than simply just watching a film and watching a great performance? I think if you're talking about who is this meant for, I think it's white people. For me, it's a stark reminder of how just a short time ago what the world was like and the people who lived in it. And then I look today and I see things like George Floyd and I go, I don't know that we've really made a whole lot of progress. So, and probably the heaviest hitting thing for me that came out of Till, other than Danielle Detweiler's performance, if there was like one moment, it's exactly what I talked about with another film with title cards at the end. It's just the reminder that that the Emmett Till bill was signed into law just last year that made lynching a federal hate crime. The thing that Mamie was working toward her whole life, and she passed away in 2003. It took almost 20 years after her death for that law to pass. She didn't even get to see it pass within her lifetime. So, and almost, over 65 years later after Emmett's death. So it's very, that makes it very sort of astounding when you think about what is it that we're talking about? What should have happened? What is it that we're supposed to do, and what are we supposed to take away from this? And I think there's a lot to take away if you have skin that looks like mine. And it's not a white fragility thing. I didn't walk away and feel white guilt or white fragility. I just see always that it's acknowledging the past at a time when we have a state that is trying to say there's no educational value in an AP African American Studies class, when we still have all of this stuff happening, and this is supposed to be history. This is something that we're supposed to be beyond us. But is it really? So that was my takeaway, and that's how I feel. I feel like Till affected me in a completely specific, very pointed way, and I'm glad I got to see it, and I'm glad I had this experience. Now to talk about the audio description, if you're still with me and didn't pass out. I didn't like the audio description, and I didn't like the audio description, and I'm gonna dip my toes in dangerously here in recorded video on the internet. True, I do not know the race of a narrator. And it gets into that sounds blank, this person sounds blank, this person sounds blank, it gets a little difficult like that. But I've also spoken with other people in the audio description community and other blind movie lovers who are POC, and they appreciate it when they can tell that their narrator is from the community. And not just the narrator, but also the writer, and the way that the terms are written, and just it just feels more at home. Um, there's something to me. I don't know that I necessarily need the writing to be different. I think this is a well written um, narration, but and I already posted this, and somebody came back and said, well, the director wanted it to be a celebration. It's really hard to celebrate, though, at when you're narrating, like, the just destroyed body of Emmett Till. And this narrator is very upbeat and very, I would say the word white sounding. I believe the narrator is a white narrator, and I think I probably would have gone. I think we kind of missed the boat here on being able to match representation, to be able to have a storyteller that sort of is connected to the understanding of what it is, because they're also sort of filtering the story, you know, and everyone else who's involved in telling the story is black. There are not really white cast members in this. I mean, Haley Bennett is the one that gets the most props, and that's because she has like a scene where she sits on the stand and gives her testimony. She has the most extended amount of dialogue of any of the white people in the film. So I would have gone. I think Deluxe should have made a concerted effort, and if it turns out that this is a black person who just that's her voice, great. I'm sorry. I still would say it's upbeat, but I think it's a 1-2 punch for me in terms of I think we can do better. I think representation matters, and I think especially in certain circumstances, we should go out of our way to make sure that certain stories match the stories that are being told. Those are my thoughts. You know, I just, there's a Color Purple musical that's in the works. Plan now and find a black narrator for that. I'll just say it. There are just certain stories that I feel like should be told by, like, this is their story to tell us, and we're here to listen. I'm here to listen. I'm here to absorb. I'm here to grow. I'm not here. You should. I'm not here to participate. You know, I'm not here to offer my to join Till in the process. And that's kind of what happened a little bit, I think, here. Anyway, I just think we could do better and think about representation also when we think about audio description. I know it's so tough because we just get so excited when it's a human and not a robot. And it's just like, oh my God. Or just there's audio description at all. That's the sad world we live in, is we feel so, like we can't complain, we can't say anything because, my God, yeah, there's so many things that don't have audio description. And then there are things that have robo description that have TTS, where it sounds like all those computer programs that we have to listen to day in and day out. So to actually start talking about the nuances of it, and to actually expect to sort of pay more attention, it seems like, can we even be at that place? And I think we're using the other as an excuse to not be at that place. So that would be what I would say. So use this as an opportunity. This film should have been used as an opportunity to give work to a narrator of color. So that's the end of that statement. One last thing I want to say is just sort of a little offshoot that I found to be sort of an interesting full circle moment was the fact that this film does feature Medgar Evers, who I assume at some point within my lifetime we'll have another movie tell about his life. But Whoopi Goldberg is also in the film, and Whoopi Goldberg had the opportunity to play Medgar's wife in Ghost of Mississippi. Now, while they don't share a scene, I did see kind of the almost connected full circle moment there for Whoopi Goldberg of being in a second. She's in a second film that features Medgar Evers. This time she's just not playing his wife. So, anyway, it's a good film. It's not my favorite film of the year. I think this is an example. This is probably how I'm going to feel about The Whale, to be honest, based on everything that I've heard, whereas like Brendan Fraser's performance is just like pulling it along. I think Danielle Detweiler's performance here is just leaps and bounds. It's the first thing that I would say when, if I was saying why should you watch this film, I would say because of Danielle Detweiler. I wouldn't say because of the film, which is weird. I think the film is great, and I think it has a point, and it has a message, and I think it's a film that everybody should see. But the leading factor here is Danielle Detweiler, not the film itself. I don't think the film does not beat Danielle Detweiler. Danielle Detweiler beats the film. She becomes the film. It's just such a tremendous performance. There's no way to ignore that. So, anyway, I liked the film. I didn't love the film. It's a tough watch. I can't see myself wanting to ever see this again. That doesn't mean I won't watch it again, but I don't know when. Could be 10, 15 years from now I might see Till again. But this is not going to be something that I'm rushing to see again. I already feel like I've seen it twice because of Women of the Movement, which is part of the problem, which is part of the reason that when I say I'm giving Till a B+, it has a lot to do with the fact that I wish I hadn't seen Women of the Movement. I think if I had just seen only Till, this grade might be higher. I might have felt more wowed by the experience and more hit with every single gut punch. But instead, I found myself comparing things a lot, which is kind of unfair. And I'm just literally trying to acknowledge every single possible bias that I could possibly have here and be as honest in my review of this film as humanly possible. It's not a bad film. I've just seen it before. That's my review of Till. But the Oscars better damn well nominate Danielle Detweiler. I'm fucking around about that. I'm playing. I'm not playing with that. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for checking out this review. I know it's long, but sometimes you just really have something you gotta talk about. And I can't talk about it too fast in a way that makes me sound like I don't want to sound upbeat myself. So this is a somber tone movie. I don't think quite the celebration doesn't quite come through either. If we're being honest, like we're talking about like how it feels like a celebration of what? You have it's like a 7-minute segment, about like 5 to 7 minute segment where she's with her son's corpse. What am I celebrating? I don't know. The film is not a 100% celebration of Mamie Till. And that is one of those scenes where I wish the narrator had dipped back a little bit on the cheery tone, and been like, oh, I'm describing a dead body. Shit. Yes. So we're gonna get into this. Anyway, thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, so I can keep talking to you about films with audio description, and keep reminding people that blind people watch films too. I would love to get a black blind person's opinion on this film, but It didn't happen for me. I made a post and I didn't get any responses necessarily. So, um, and I have a website, macthemovieguy.com. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at macthemovieguy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know who has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org and you can look up narrators. Yes, I do know the narrator's name. I have selectively not included it because I feel weird calling out a person for certain things. So, I do know what the narrator's name is. But I'm not going to put them on blast until I know the full story, which nobody seems to have given me the answers that I need in order to really be able to do that. So I'm just having a conversation right now. I'm not trying to put anybody as a target. That's not my intention. So I just think we should have an open discussion about perhaps there are some times where we should make a concerted effort to hire somebody of a specific race to describe a specific film. That's my thought. Thank you for joining me on that conversation. I will review something else for you, and I will see you on the other side.